Lars, this is so good, man. I missed you, dude. I really did. We're Apple Music One now, and It's Electric plays such a pivotal role in us getting there. You had like a really important pride of place in the video that went out and reminded people everything we've achieved. And that show is so special, and I'm going to spend a little time reflecting on that a little bit later on, and I hope that I can convince you to come back. But right now, we're going to talk a little bit about the Stones and your whole vibe and how you got to sort of, like I said, some young kid, some young punk from Denmark, living in America, who's inspired by the Stones, all of a sudden gets to play with the Stones. Was that the pinch yourself moment? Was that one of the great pinch yourself moments of your life when you got to connect with them?
The very first concert experience I have, and I use that in sort of quotes, is my dad took me to see the concert in Hyde Park in 1969, just after Brian Jones unfortunately had passed. The week after, which is one of the legendary moments in the Rolling Stones' history, obviously.
You were there? You were at Hyde Park?
I was at Hyde Park. Yeah, I was 5 years old, and so I was sort of along for the ride. But my dad and took me, and so I was there.
Dude, that moment when he does that poem and he goes like, everybody cool it, yeah, cool it, just cool it. This is for Brian, and everyone, 250,000 people, just shut up.
I was actually there for that show. 5 years old. My dad was playing Wimbledon at the time, the summer of '69. And I just, one of the bands, obviously you asked for a playlist for lockdown and for the pandemic. And obviously you get a chance to go deeper into some of the creative and cultural things that you have already established relationships with. But I have gone way deep on the Rolling Stones in the last month or two, and like other things, the gift that keeps on giving. There's so much incredible stuff in there, and so much stuff out there on YouTube. And I was watching over the weekend. I was watching it was a British, I don't know, probably BBC, a European tour documentary from 1976. On the Stones. I think they were in like Belgium and a few other places. And it's just incredible at that time in 1976. So most of them are probably in their early 30s. The main theme by the journalist and sort of the thing hanging over them for 30 minutes is, when are you going to retire? You're in your 30s now. When is the time to hang up? And actually Jagger at the end of it gets kind of testy and says, well, a stupid question, and we're out here having fun.
We're stupid.
And this is 1976. This is 44 years ago, and they're still out here kicking ass.
There's a couple of things that I've got. There's a few roads I can go down with on what you were saying there. But starting with the idea of you always being native to the Bay, and I wonder if you ever dabbled with Los Angeles, and if so, what your impressions of it were.
So when I came to America, we landed in Newport Beach, and so I spent the first couple of years in LA. And before, obviously, we started our love affair with San Francisco 37 years ago. The band Metallica was actually started in LA, formed in LA. I was in Newport Beach. Hetfield was in Norwalk Downey, right in that area, up the 605. And we spent the first year, just about a year, trying to figure out who we were. Both of us were loners. We got a couple other band members, played a few shows up in the clubs up on the Sunset Strip. At that time, dominated by Rat and Motley Crue and the Steelers of the world.
Common knowledge, Lars? I mean, I'm sure hardcore fans know this, but I had no idea, genuinely, and I'm a fan, that you guys actually, began, your story legitimately and earnestly began on Hair Metal Strip.
It did, yes. I mean, it's obviously not the biggest part of the story, but for the people that go way back, we played shows in the summer of '82 up on the Strip. Played the Whiskey, played the Troubadour, played a couple of those places a few times, and obviously we made absolutely no connection to the scene or to the punters up there at the time. Then we started in September of '82, we played our first show in San Francisco, and that's where the love affair with San Francisco began. And then we relocated up here in January '83, and obviously flown the flag for San Francisco since then. But we did have a kind of an awkward and a sort of a difficult relationship with LA the first year. Absolutely.
You know, you guys are heading fast towards 40.
Can I just say that I just want to thank you for it really warms my Danish heart that you think that I'm turning 40 soon.
Look, you're looking really good for squelchy. I don't know what age you are, so I'll just say it's schmurty. But let me say, you know, the band is hitting. The band is hitting fast to 40, and you know you are in that point, whether you like it or not, where milestones rear their head, and you know that because S&M 2 is 20 years on from S&M. And that can't be a coincidence. So I guess every band at some point, whether they want to look back or not, have to acknowledge that where they stand is a symbiosis mathematically in that space, and you may as well lean into it. Is that fair to say that Metallica recognize and understand the power of math when it comes to legacy at this point?
So obviously, you know, in all seriousness, that we wear our you know, age proud, and yes, we are hitting 40 as a band next year. In 21. I think for the last few weeks, as I've heard myself talk about the state of Metallica, the state of the world, and this next record, I just so much of our energy and our focus is always in the future, and sometimes even too much in the future, where I'd say sometimes it feels like you should pay more attention to the present. But the one place we spend the least amount of time is in the past. And so obviously in interviews, we will talk about the past, and when asked about, you know, choices or things from the past, we're happy to answer them. But when we are a creative unit, when we are a creative entity, and when we sort of do what we do, it's always about the future. It's always about the next album, the possibilities, and what else we can do to connect with each other and the fans in the future. And I think that somehow just keeps it useful.
So let's not prepare or expect anything around 40 then. We'll move swiftly on and get to 41. We just played U2 and Bad. It's a beautiful moment to be able to play that, because I feel that as the lane has narrowed and the field has disappeared into the rearview mirror, when you look left and right, there are very few peers that you can say are still trying to push forward, to use your term before, and focus on making new things that are new and trying to extend value into what you've created and not live off previous value. It must be nice to be able to know that you're not standing alone out there still, because the field does narrow.
Obviously, bands in their 50s and functioning bands in their 50s and 60s is a rare thing. It just gets harder to function within that setting, because as you get older, you just become more kind of want to do your own thing. And so it's the easy out is always to run off and be a solo artist. But obviously U2, I think any band members, you know, if you sat here with members of, in no particular order, Coldplay or the Red Hot Chili Peppers or Muse or Aerosmith or, you know, any of the other bands that are still functioning, Pearl Jam, everybody would say that U2 is an inspiration, and everybody would, you know, for me, they're such an inspiration, but even just the fact, I mean, these guys went to school together. They all grew up on the same street. I mean, yes, we're a band 40 years later, but, you know, we have different passports and come from different parts of this incredible planet. They all grew up on the same street, more or less together. So just to have that and be able to, you know, 50 years later, just do what they're doing is so inspiring.
We just played Iron Maiden, Lars, and we know how influential Iron Maiden are to the story of Metallica. But let me ask you a question. Do you get on well with Iron Maiden?
Get on fine with Bruce. We were in Toronto 2 summers ago, maybe 3 summers ago, and we were all staying in the same hotel. We played, I think we were based out of Toronto for 5-7 days, and they came in and out, and we had 2 days together down in the bar, down in the restaurant. I had a very nice long chat with Bruce outside one of the elevators. Steve and I caught up. We talked about playing tennis. Rod Smallwood, the legendary manager. I love those guys.
Needless to say that, you know, Bruce has a reputation for being prickly.
My relationship with those guys obviously goes back years and years and years to 1981 in Copenhagen, when Steve Harris and the first singer, Paul Diano, were kind enough to invite me into the dressing room as I was standing in the shivering cold outside the concert hall in Copenhagen. They have always been, the hard rock bands. The one that's probably inspired Metallica the most. They had cooler record covers. They had cooler, the stories, and just they seem to care more about the fans.
We talked a bit about Rage Against the Machine and the importance of it and the voice of it right now. And I just wanted a couple of minutes to get your thoughts on, as someone who, effectively immigrated here to America and has contributed a lot to, the culture of American music, the American economy. Metallica pay their taxes. There's a lot that's gone on in the last sort of near 40 years where you could sit there and have a very qualified opinion about the kind of growth pains that this country is going through right now and impending election time. And I wonder, personally, not politically, how you're feeling about things at the moment, being a father, being a grown man, and being someone who contributes to the growth of this country.
I think the first word that comes to mind is just bewildering. And it's hard for me to talk about America without putting it in the context of where I come from, Denmark. You come from a smaller country yourself, so I'll always have that as my. It's always my equalizer is Denmark, and so in Denmark, as you know, everything is we, everything is us. Everything is just 5 million Danes standing together and trying to figure out how to move forward together. So words like unity and collective are very present when I think about Denmark, and it's always about opening your door and being embracive and hospitable. Obviously, America is 330 million people, covers more ground than most other countries on this planet. And those ideals, I think, are just very hard or very just difficult, of course, you can't just say, well, America is going to be the same as Denmark. I understand the difficulties and I understand all of it. And it saddens me. But as you know, I'm not I'm not even at glasses half full. I mean, the glass is so spilling over all the time, positive, and obviously feel that, again, like I said before, spending most of my time in the future, that the future will always be better than the past. And I'm hopeful that that unity is in front of America at some point soon. And I can see it in my kids, a 22-year-old, 19-year-old, and a 13-year-old. I'm very hopeful, and I don't want to sound cheesy. I don't want to sound too cliches, but when I see, no, but yeah, I mean, it is my truth. When I look at these kids, my kids, and so many of their peers, I just feel like so many of them are really, really good kids. And it's not about whether, they're successful or whether they're becoming doctors or lawyers or scientists or whatever. It's like that bar to me doesn't even exist anymore. Now it's just, are they good kids or are they not good kids? And pretty much all of them they're good kids. They're global citizens. They're respectful. They have empathy. They care and they're involved.
Lars, I got 60 seconds. I got to ask you, what's going on with the album? Where are we headed?
Well, between you and I and nobody else, we have a call at 2:00 today, the four of us, to talk about what's next after spending the 2 weeks in the bubble and having the best time ever reconnecting. We're looking forward to what's next. We've spent a few of the summer months trading riffs, trading ideas, throwing creative thoughts back and forth through Zoom calls and through other, technologies. And we're looking forward to getting to it. Lots of material to share with the world. And it's just a matter of the practicals.
Good luck with S&M too. And with the drive-in show as well. That's going to be interesting. Experimentation continues, right? Invention is the mother of necessity, bro.
Again, a positive coming out of these 5 dark months is that it's forcing you to just rethink what you know and what we're so used to. So a new world order calls for new experimental times and shenanigans. So let's see how it plays out.